cares away. Christmas is here, bringing good cheer to young and old, meek and the bold. Ding dong, that is the song with joyful ring. All caroling, one seems to hear words of good cheer from everywhere, filling the air. Oh, how they pound, raising their sound, o'er hill and dale, telling their tales. Merry, merry, while people sing songs of good cheer. Christmas is here. Merry, 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 merry Christmas. Merry, 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 merry Christmas. On they send on without end their joyful tone to everyone. Ha, ha, ha. Ding dong, ding dong, ding dong, ding dong. Sweet silver bells all seem to say, throw cares away. We will throw cares away. Christmas is here, bringing good cheer to young and old, meek and the bold. Bringing cheer. Oh, how they pound, raising their sound, o'er hill and dale, telling their tales. Merry, merry, while people sing songs of good cheer. Christmas is here. Merry, 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 merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. Merry, 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 merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. Send on without end their joyful tone to everyone. La da 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 da, 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 la da 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 I may not always love you, but long as there are stars above you, you never need to doubt it. I'll make you so sure about it. God only knows what I'd be without you. If you should ever leave me, though life would still go on, believe me, the world could show nothing to me. So what good would living do me? God only knows what I'd be without you.
Uh, we'd like to start today on the last Sunday of Advent with Joy to the World, number 280 in the hymnal. I invite you all to sing along. Most of us know this one probably. So 280 in the hymnal. Joy to the world, the Lord is come. Let earth receive her King. Let every heart prepare his room, and heaven and nature sing, and heaven and nature sing, and heaven and nature sing. Joy to the world, the Savior reigns. Let men their songs employ, while fields and floods, rocks, hills, and plains repeat their sounding joy. Repeat the sounding joy. Repeat the sounding joy. He rules the world with truth and grace, and makes their nations prove the glories of his righteousness, and wonders of his love, and wonders of his love, and wonders of his love.
Hello, how are you? Here we are. Good morning. Thank you, Mitch and Arden. That was beautiful. Good. On behalf of the Board of Trustees, the Assistant Spiritual Director, Mitchell Jones, and myself, Reverend Barbara Adams, I'd like to welcome you all to Unity Rochester Spiritual Center. We have a guest speaker today, Nancy Hicks, who is our Vice President of the Board of Trustees and a longtime member of Unity. And Nancy brings with her a wealth of knowledge from her travels around the world as a teacher within the Rochester City School District, and someone whom is on my list as Elder of Wisdom and has offered me much assistance. So may we welcome Nancy Hicks, who will be speaking in just a few minutes. At this time, we'd like to welcome anyone who is visiting for the first time, here for the first time. If you'd like to raise your hand. Okay. Well, welcome all of us. As I have begun to do this year, today I'd like to honor two of the holidays and celebrations that grace our greater community. By doing so, my goal is to demonstrate inclusiveness and love for all. And one of the holidays, of course, is Hanukkah. And to our Jewish brothers and sisters, we offer Shalom. This is not a political statement, but an acknowledgement that we are all one, including our Palestinian brothers and sisters. Hanukkah is a Jewish holiday that celebrates the rededication of the Second Temple in Jerusalem and the Maccabees' victory over the Syrian Greeks in the 2nd century BC. The miracle of the oil is that according to the Talmud, there was only enough oil to light the menorah for one day, but it miraculously burned for 8 days. Thus, the lighting of the menorah continues as a way of celebrating this victory. And we are also celebrating and honoring the celebration of Kwanzaa. To our African American brothers and sisters, we extend our blessing for this celebration of self and of community. Kwanzaa was created in 1966 by Dr. Malana Korega, an activist and professor of African Studies. It's based on African Harvest Festival traditions from West, East, and Southeast Africa. The name Kwanzaa comes from the Swahili phrase, Matunda ya Kwanzaa. Kwanzaa's 7 guiding principles, or Nzugo Saba, are umoja, unity; kujichagulia, self-determination; ujima, collective work and responsibility; ujama, cooperative economics; nia, purpose; kumba, creativity; and imani, faith. Now, let us remember why we are here among the celebration of all of our brothers and sisters. We are all here because of divine order. We are meant to be here to learn, to teach, to pray, to meditate, to join in community. And we are here to remember and to share our core values of love, gratitude, creativity, and spiritual growth. We are here to remember that Jesus Christ shows us the way to remembering the truth. We call Jesus our way shower. We strive to raise our consciousness to the presence of the divine within. We seek the awareness of a first-hand experience with God. And now, my friends, I offer these acknowledgments as you settle into this sacred space. This is a sanctuary of love and acceptance of all. This is a sanctuary of healing and peace. This is a holy space of inquiry where you are asked to think on your own rather than being told what to think. We ask questions for you to ponder so that you may discover your understanding of truth. For our opening prayer, our holy Creator, we offer gratitude for this loving community and for all those who strive to create a loving and safe environment as we join in person and in spirit in living the truth we know. We are grateful for all members and visitors who felt a call to be present, who felt the need to slow down and to allow the presence of the divine to remind them of their truth. We thank you, Holy Creator, for the many gifts you have bestowed upon us. May we continue to express gratitude for the abundance of love, family, safety, and food, shelter, health, healing, and the abundance of resources. Blessings upon this community and all those who seek to live in peace and prosperity. And so it is. Amen. Prayer chaplain Suzanne Brower is bringing up the prayer box. Contained within are your prayers and offers of gratitude. Our prayer chaplains will pray for you, and will pray in the affirmative of thanking our Creator for answering and responding to your offers of request and to your offers of gratitude. And may we also add our prayers. Our Holy Creator, we are grateful. We are grateful that you always know ahead of what we know of what our needs and requests are. We are grateful for your answering these requests in the way that you know is best for all involved. And we thank you. And so it is. Amen. Together may we recite the Lord's Prayer. Our Creator, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our bread, and forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not in temptation, but deliver us from error. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. Daily Word today is read by Prayer Chaplain Carol Baumeister. You can come right here, Carol, if you like.
Good morning. Today, the daily word is joy. My Advent journey leads me to joy. There is a stirring in the air that calls me to rejoice. The imminent birth of the Christ into humanity is an exciting time. Joy is the welcoming of unconditional love and the deep knowing it is the birthright of all the world's beings. It is the awe felt at the birth of a baby, the scent of crisp, clean air, or watching a comet flame across the night sky. These are some of the wonders that bring me joy. I need not wait for these serendipitous happenings to awaken my joy. As I have embarked on the Advent journey, I have grown in faith, peace, and love. With joy, my Advent journey is nearing completion. This wonderful feeling of deep contentment, a full heart, and tranquil mind leads to the expectancy of the birth of the Christ within me, the greatest gift I could receive. From Matthew 2:10, when they saw the star had stopped, they were overwhelmed with joy. Thank you.
So join us now in singing Angels We Have Heard on High on page 279 in the hymnal. I'll give you a minute to open it. Angels we have heard on high, sweetly singing o'er the plains, and the mountains in reply, echoing their joyous strains. Gloria in excelsis Deo. Gloria in excelsis Deo. Shepherds, why this jubilee? Why your joyous strains prolong? Say, what may the tidings be which inspire your heavenly song? Gloria in excelsis Deo. Gloria in
excelsis Deo. Come to Bethlehem and see him whose birth the angels sing. Come adore on bended knee Christ the Lord, the newborn King. Gloria in excelsis Deo. Gloria in excelsis Deo.
The denial today is, I deny ego has control of my emotions. Repeat with me, please. I deny ego has control of my emotions. And the affirmation, I center my attention on joyous anticipation, knowing all is well, truly. Okay. Before I begin, you might like to get out your little notebooks you have underneath that has somewhere you can write, and there's a pen also. First, I'm going to talk about the winter solstice, and there may be some things you might like to look up more about when you go home. I'm so pleased to be speaking to you on this day. Yesterday was December 21st, the winter solstice, and it was my birthday. Thank you. When I was a kid, I hated having my birthday near Christmas. I don't know about any other Christmas babies in here. My mother loved Christmas, and she spent the month of December getting ready, and my birthday kind of got lost in the shuffle. I used to have a Carvel birthday cake. Who wants an ice cream cake for your birthday? But I always remembered to sing Happy Birthday to Jesus when I came down the stairs on Christmas morning. As an adult, I learned more about the significance of the winter and summer solstice and the spring and fall equinox. I knew they held significance in earlier cultures, but in my travels I came to truly understand much more. Okay. The first one is the pyramids in Egypt. I'm sure all of you have seen pictures of the pyramids. They were constructed with a flat side in each compass direction, north, south, east, and west, and the engineering is considered excellent. It's right on target. They worshiped the sun, so of course they wanted the pyramids to face east. On the winter solstice, the sun rises between the two largest pyramids, making the sun gods, the pharaohs, just as important as the sun. When I went to Chichen Itza on the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico, I was there on the spring equinox. Their pyramid is constructed the same as the pyramids in Egypt. Each side faces a direction. When I was there, as the sun set on the equinox, the light of the setting sun moves up the steps, kind of like a serpent. It's kind of eerie. The serpent is important in the Mayan culture. A very eerie experience. Each season has a corresponding event on a corresponding pyramid face. And the Mayans also had an observatory to study the universe. In Peru, I went to Machu Picchu, the home of the Incas. This sacred city has much importance for the Inca people. Among other things, we saw a small building with a small square opening in it. The guide pointed to a faraway mountain. It was really far away. And it appeared to have a notch cut right out of the mountain. When the sun rises on the winter solstice, the beam of the sun shines right through that little hole and rests right on a stone that's in the middle of it. And that, of course, is the shortest day of the year. From now on, each day would add a few minutes to the day until they reached June 21st, the longest day of the year, when the day has the most minutes of daylight. They knew these things because they studied the planets and the stars and figured out the seasons. When I went to Beijing, I visited the Temple of Heaven, a large round temple that the emperor visited on the winter solstice. And he prayed to the gods. They had a huge ceremony. Prayed to the gods, please bring back the light. And of course, every year, the next day, they started having more light. This certainly made the emperor very powerful. Now, I don't think the common people in any of these cultures knew exactly what was happening, but obviously the learned men didn't. They studied the stars and the seasons also. The winter solstice means the end of a cycle and the beginning of a new one. What did these cultures and many others have in common? They all studied the stars and the planets, and as I was going over my talk, I realized we always complain about we really can't see the whole sky. They could. Think how amazing every day was. It got dark and they had all the planets, all the stars. Also, because they didn't have electricity, the sun determined what they were doing. So either when it got dark, they needed torches to carry around or fires to keep them warm and so they could see. So they were much more dependent on the light from the sun. We'd adjust to whatever we want. If we want to be light, we put electricity on. If we look around now at everybody's yards, people have lights out and have beautiful winter lights. Each of these cultures and many others place spiritual significance in these events. It also helped them to determine the planting times and the harvest times. Yesterday was the end of the cycle. Today's the beginning of the new one. When the early Christians wanted to celebrate the birth of Jesus, they needed to choose a day because they didn't actually know what day he was born on. They finally settled on December 25th, thinking that early people already celebrate this winter solstice. It'll be easy to incorporate Jesus' birth into their belief system. When the sun sets today, take a moment and think about the significance. In 2 days, we will celebrate Christmas Eve and then the birth of baby Jesus, a day of joy and peace on earth. And now I'd like to talk about some things that happened while I was in Africa. And Senegal is on the bulge. This piece here is called the bulge. And the country is blue, Senegal. What I have on today is a robe that I bought in Senegal. I love the color of it. And when I bought it, the man said, "Madam, men wear these." And I said, "Women wear dashikis." Well, I said, "But I like this. I love the color, and it's got a pocket. It just fits my cigarettes and my Zippo lighter." I hope you're not disappointed, but I used to smoke a lot. So, I learned a lot of lessons when I traveled. Today, what I'm going to tell you about is some lessons I learned in Africa. I've been to 6 countries in Africa, and I found each is settled by different groups of people. Africa is not a country, Africa is a continent. I found people warm and welcoming and interested in sharing their culture with us. On my first trip to Africa in 1987, I went to Senegal with a group of city school district teachers. The trip was sponsored by the city school district and the University of Rochester, but not paid for by them. The group leader was a black professor from the U of R, and he had a very good guide for us once we got there. The trip was to help us understand African cultures better and to help us impart the rich African cultures to our students. The trip was of great significance. Excuse me a minute. It's amazing how your throat can get dry in an instant. The trip had great significance for the black teachers, and I know many of them went numerous times and helped in different areas. For me, I have never forgotten the experience. I saw and experienced many things in the city of Dakar, the capital of Senegal, and in the bush that was outside the city. I saw huge baobab trees that looked like they've planted upside down, since for most of the year there are no leaves or fruit on the tangled branches. I saw 5-foot-high abandoned anthills with walls as hard as cement. I had to go up and touch them. I couldn't believe it was dirt. It's like cement, and those happened to be abandoned. We visited an apartment complex where our guide lived, and they were designed so that they were big rectangular apartment buildings, and they were designed so there was a courtyard in the middle of each group, just like their villages in the bush, so that at night they could come out and talk, sing, dance. And the night we went, they had brought all the kitchen chairs outside and made a big circle. And normally the elderly get to sit, but tonight we got to sit. And we got to experience the drumming and dancing, and it was just fabulous. On the last day, we had some free time, and I walked to a small market that was down the street from the hotel. It was early, and there were a few vendors, not many shoppers. One thing I had wanted to find on my shopping trip was a Mancala game, which perhaps you've heard of, or maybe you had one for your kids to use. This is a while ago. This was before you could find any in the United States. They're now made commercially. The Mancala game is wooden, and it's about the size of a large sub-roll. It's cut in half, it's put together with hinges, and there are 12 cups carved out of it, and they use seeds or pebbles in the cup to play the game. The game has simple rules and complex rules for playing depending on who's playing. I read a kingdom was lost in the Songhai Empire in West Africa with a bet on a Mancala game. I particularly wanted to get one, an authentic one, so I could take it back and the kids could play. And I looked around, saw a vendor, and I casually walked over. Shopping in African markets and art, you casually walk around. If you see something you like, you just keep walking. And you might come back and look at it a little while, but don't be too obvious. I didn't see any games, and then out of the corner of my eye, I noticed there was a vendor, and he and his 3 friends were playing a Mancala game. It was a nice handmade set with a hinge cover, and I continued to wander to try to figure out how to do this. You have to bargain, since that's the way they do things. If you don't, they don't respect you at all. I had brought some chewing gum along to literally sweeten the deal when I was bargaining. Gum is typically American. At this time, there was not any gum available in Africa. So I casually went up to where the vendor was, and I pointed at the game, and I said, like that. And the vendor looked at me, and he said, so I asked him how much in French, and it was a French colony, so that's the main language that they speak, along with several tribal languages. He said he could not sell it. Well, this continued for a while. I kept looking at it and saying, and he goes, no. So finally, he had figured out by then I was American and I spoke English. So I gave him a price that was like 75% of what he said, which he had just told me what he finally decided he would charge. And we dickered a while, and finally I got out my pack of gum and showed him the gum. Wow, he thought that looked very interesting. So he put another price in my little calculator, which was a little less than what he said before, and I kept my price the same. So he hesitated a while, and then he went and got the game. Where's the pebbles and the seeds? And handed it to me. So I held out the money, and I gave him the package of gum. And he put the money in his robe, and he held out that pack of gum, and thought that looked pretty good. So we shook hands. We finished our deal. I turned around, and I left the market. I turned around, and I was amazed with what I saw. That gum, which we pay a nickel for, or maybe we paid a quarter for at that time, has value if there's no other product like that. So he had opened his gum, and he'd given each of his friends a piece of gum. And there they were all sitting, chewing the gum. So I turned around, and I walked back to the hotel, and I was really very surprised. That man could have saved that for himself. He could have sold it again for more than I bought the Moncala game. This man, while not having much education, was very savvy. He could speak enough of many languages to be able to bargain. He could also make change for whatever it was you handed him. I saw a vendor take out a roll of bills, of many denominations. I have no doubt that he knew exactly what he had, knew how to convert it into whatever he needed for what he was selling. So my first lesson was what sharing really was. It wasn't giving of your access, it was giving of your prized possessions. A year later, a group of Senegalese high school teachers came to Rochester for a week to see our schools and find out about American education and the African American culture in our area. I hosted a woman for a week, and I took her wherever she needed to go during the day, and then I went off to teach. And then I would pick her up in the afternoon, and we went out in the evening together. One day after school, I took her to Lake Ontario. I took her down to Charlotte. She didn't, and then we walked out to the lake. She couldn't believe it was a lake, or that this was fresh water. She had to put her hands in the water and taste it to believe we would have fresh water that we could just drink that was that much. Every evening there was some activity. I remember one, the School of the Arts had a presentation for them, but there were other interesting things that were prepared just for them coming to see us. The last day she came to school with me dressed in her beautiful African clothes, and the children were so interested in everything she told them. She stayed at my house, and we talked about many things. She was surprised that I lived in a big house all by myself and wanted to know where my children were, and I said, well, in America, we believe we should raise our children, and then they will go off and be independent by themselves. They'll have their own home with their own families. This idea was really foreign to her. From her, I learned, yes, by world standards, I do live in a big house. By American standards, no, I live in a small house. Bigger than I need, with more things than I need. I have a good education. I had a profession that provided me with a good salary. I had a car of my own, and I could make all my own decisions. The majority of women in the world would trade places with me or any of you in a split second. From then on, I have tried not to take anything for granted. I say thank you, Father, many times a day, and I feel truly blessed to live in America. My next lesson came on a trip to Côte d'Ivoire, Ivory Coast. The Ivory Coast is on the bulge, on the underside of the bulge. It's that light blue country. My friend Jackie and I stayed in Abidjan, which is the capital. This is over, I put down 20, but over 30 years ago. At that point, it was a really peaceful country. It was considered the Paris of Africa, a modern city of over 1 million people. You've read about the violence in that country in the last years. It's sad when it's somewhere I've actually been, and to imagine it being turned into something completely else is very sad. It's one of the countries that had transitioned well from colonialism. Being a French colony, they were accustomed to French people speaking French, like the French people in Paris who don't seem to understand Americans speaking French. But my friend Jackie was fluent in French. But since she was American, they chose not to understand her. This is part of traveling. You never know exactly what's going to happen. Fortunately, there was a young man at the desk who was interested in English. He wanted to come to America sometime. So we very quietly made some plans for him to find a driver, and he'll go with us, and we can go into the bush. One of the reasons why we had chosen that hotel was because there was a tourist desk, which you often find in foreign countries, so tourists could go see what's there. We were there for a week, and nobody ever arrived at that desk. So this was our way of being able to see something beside our hotel. So we agreed to meet him on the hotel grounds because talking to the guests was considered not appropriate behavior. The day came, and we waited outside the hotel for the driver. He arrived in a nice car, and the plan for us was for him to pick up our new friend outside the Black African area. The hotel was on a hill, and it took about 5 minutes to drive down the hill. We got to an appointed place and stopped, but no young man. We waited for 10 minutes, and he didn't appear. Well, the driver explained in French that he could take us on a tour, and he would give it to us in French. Well, this was a moment of decision. We could go with this man that we'd only met 15 minutes ago, or go back to the hotel. Well, Abidjan at this time had few taxis and scarce means of transportation, and Jackie was having trouble communicating with other people. He seemed to be able to understand her perfectly well. So we sat there for a few minutes, and we didn't feel apprehensive or nervous, so we decided we'd trust our instincts. So we decided to go. Almost immediately, the driver showed us that the needle on the gas gauge was hovering on empty. Jackie was like, oh, no. I said, Jackie, it's okay. This is part of our trip. She said, all right. So I assured her that this would be okay. So we stopped at a gas station, and he filled up, and we were on our way. Jackie chatted with the driver, and I looked out the window. This turned out to be a memorable day, and if we hadn't trusted, we would have missed it. The first thing we saw was a large group of women singing and rather chanting and swaying to the music. They were dressed in colorful dresses and turbans in their hair, and there was such a big crowd, they spilled out into the road, and the driver had to go way into the left lane for us to go around. I had Jackie ask the driver what was going on, and he said, well, Either it was a birth or a death. Well, he really wasn't sure. Well, the women seemed so joyful, I decided it must be celebrating the birth of a healthy baby. Well, we were on our way to Grand-Bassam, the French colonial capital of Côte d'Ivoire. Further down the road, we found a store out in the middle of nowhere. Well, I was getting better bargaining by this trip. So we stopped, and it was an artist cooperative, and I bought 3 fabulous masks that I have hanging in my house. I've had them hanging in my house since I took that trip. I also got several gifts to bring home, and I thought that was about all I could buy because I didn't bring a very big suitcase. I certainly learned to change that. Well, the driver encouraged us to buy some more things because he got a percentage of the sales. I think we had lunch there too. And when we finished, we continued on to Grand-Bassam. When we reached the city, we found it pretty well deserted. There were wooden buildings, large ones, and very European looking, but very worn and hardly any paint on wood. The driver stopped at a building, and I saw an Ashanti man weaving kente cloth. Barb has that piece of kente cloth on. Would you like to show them? Kente cloth was woven originally only for royalty. But everybody's able to buy it today. Some of it is even printed by the yard here in the States. These are woven in strips. It happens to be the tradition of how it's woven, and then the strips are are sewn with very tiny stitches together to make a garment. I wanted to take a photo, and I got my camera out to show the man, but he said. So I noticed he had some cigarettes next to his chair. So this was in the 80s when cigarettes were cheap, and I smoked. So in this culture, only the men did the weaving. So I got out my cigarettes. I asked her if I could take photos. He says, okay. So then I took a photograph, but then he decided it'd be okay if he sold a piece too. So I bought that. So we got to an old resort. Again, beautiful buildings in terrible repair. We walked down to the ocean, and the land dropped off sharply below to the beach. A wide beach was there that went as far as you could see with not a person in sight. The waves were huge and the crashing deafening. I stood there trying to absorb it. Not a person in sight. A wild beach, and it was easy to understand that you couldn't harness it, but only watch. We went down the steep stairs to get on the beach, but we didn't get too near the water. Again, we just stood there and tried to absorb it all. The French must have loved this area, but the Africans not, because when independence came, they left. It was time to head back to the hotel, and with reluctance, we climbed up the steep stairs and made our way to the car. When people speak of the best beach they've ever seen, I tell them about this. It was definitely the most impressive I've ever seen. When we got back to the hotel, we paid the driver and agreed upon a fee and walked into the hotel. The next day, the young man at the hotel apologized for not meeting us, but never said a word. If we hadn't trusted that we would be safe, we would have missed an unforgettable day. My lesson? Trust God. That you will be guided, and you'll know when it's not the right thing to do. My next 2 lessons come from a trip to South Africa. South Africa is that pink country down at the southernmost part of Africa. The group I traveled with were retired teachers, so we were always interested in seeing what was going on in education. We went to a Zulu high school in the country. The children were just finishing exams, so some were walking down the hill on their way home. I talked with a young woman who was interested in practicing her English, and she told me all about what her day was like. She had a long way to walk to get to school. She got up early when it was dark and ironed her uniform. She fixed her breakfast and walked several miles to school. After school, she walked home, washed her uniform, put it out to dry, and put on her one other set of clothes, and did her homework, and then helped her mother. Children are required to wear uniforms, and they all have only one. The tuition for school was the equivalent of $5 a year. And while this seems like a small amount of money, it was prohibitive for many children to go to school. We toured the school, and the rooms were filled with desks and chairs, and supplies were very limited. They wanted a library, so the children agreed to give up the bathroom, and it was converted into a library. Hard to believe, isn't it? The fathers built an outhouse for the children. There was a big sign hanging on a wall outside the school. 100% of the children had passed district exams. They were very proud of their school and their students. I had $50 somebody had given me to take on my trip, and I gave it to the principal. She stood there with tears running down her cheeks, which of course made me cry too. We tried very hard while we were in South Africa to find a way we could make a foundation, we could do something so each year we could send money and more children could go to school. But we just never found a way. Doing business in Africa is very difficult, and many things don't get where they're supposed to go. What do these children and teachers have? Hope. Hope for the future. Hope that education will make it possible for children to get better jobs. And slowly life in South Africa will get better. There are still many problems in this country, but hope along with hard work will take them far. My last lesson is from Cape Town, South Africa, at the very tip of Africa. This is a large cosmopolitan city, very vibrantly incorporating the diverse population of this major African country. The scenery is spectacular. I'm sure you've seen some of it, or you could Google it when you get home. Cape Town. The tall cliffs rise right out of the ocean. The houses are built right on top of those cliffs. The cliffs are stone, they're not going anywhere. And parks hug the water. Whales swim right off the shore in the blue ocean waves. Off the coast is Robben Island, which houses the prison that Nelson Mandela spent more than 2 decades as a political prisoner along with his followers. We took a ferry out for a tour of the prison. Shortly after leaving shore, we were in the rough ocean. This is the Cape of Good Hope, the southern tip of Africa, where the ocean and the Atlantic Ocean and the Indian Oceans meet. Robben Island was very visible in the distance. It was easy to see that even if a prisoner escaped, they wouldn't be able to swim that far, surely not the distance from the prison to shore. An African gentleman dressed in khaki met us at the dock, and he was going to be our guide for the day. He told us many things as we walked around. This prison held hardened criminals in addition to Nelson and his friends. Nelson was at another prison first and was required to do hard labor, not exactly how a lawyer usually planned their day. Eventually, they sent him to Robben Island. After years, authorities realized that they were not violent prisoners, so they allowed Nelson and his friends to start a school and start teaching the prisoners, many of whom didn't know how to read and write, skills they would need in the new South Africa. They also talked about the African National Congress, Nelson's political party. I'm sure this was done very quietly. World opinion was not changing about apartheid. In fact, it got worse. As the world saw how evil this institution was, public sentiment grew. The international community imposed severe sanctions on this government. Many white South Africans left the country and took their money with them. Companies left the country. The future of the country looked grim. Nelson and his followers were kept in the public eye. The apartheid government gradually began to realize they were going to have to let Nelson out. Authorities moved Nelson to a less secure site and began to let him catch up on everything he'd missed. Remember, it was 27 years and they had no TV, he had no newspapers to read. Now Nelson could read and watch TV, visit with his family, and after a while, the white apartheid government started having meetings with him. Nelson didn't give in to anything. He knew exactly what he wanted for South Africa. This was going to be a democratic government. Every person would have a vote, and everyone would have an equal part in the country. The way to keep peace would be the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, where the whites and the blacks would have to own up to everything they had done, and the blacks and the coloreds and the white would have to agree to forgive. The black Africans were a huge majority and could have murdered the white Africans and thrown them out of the country and throw the whole country into chaos. But they chose to honor the agreement. I can't imagine how hard this all must have been. You've seen what kinds of things went on in South Africa. You may remember that election day in South Africa. I do. I remember looking on the news, and the people of South Africa made long, long lines, and they waited patiently for hours and hours to vote for their hero, Nelson Mandela. Wasn't this truly a miracle? A democratic election with no bloodshed in a country where the black people had never been able to vote before. About now, the tour guide took us to Nelson's cell. I stood in that cell. It's hard to imagine how he existed here. It was a small, square cement cell with a pallet on the floor and a shelf for his books. Maybe a small window high up. No water, no toilet. A bucket substituted for a toilet that had to be carried out and emptied by each prisoner when they went out of the to the yard for the day. I think they must have had some system. Surely they didn't have bottled water. They must have had a tin cup or something, and somebody came around. They couldn't have gone without water. To exist and thrive in this environment was a testament to Nelson Mandela, to the spiritual strength of this great man. Then the guide stopped, and he looked around at each of us. He looked each of us in the face. This soft-spoken man said to us, I was an inmate in this prison. Here he is today, every day. He goes and does a tour of that island. It's hard to believe that you could do that, but he did. He came to the island every day, which is now a museum of remembrance, every day as a guide to tell the story of the new South Africa, all the while remembering what life used to be like for him. Truly amazing. There are lessons for all of us from this humble South African guide about how to forgive, how to move on, and create a country where everyone can live together. Are there problems in South Africa? Yes. Are they trying to solve them peacefully? Yes. Can we do the same here? I hope we can. Thank you, Africa, for so many profound lessons, and thank you for letting me speak to you this morning.
we'll prepare for meditation by singing song 283 in the hymnal, entitled Love Came Down at Christmas. 283.
Love came down at Christmas. Love, all lovely love, divine love, was born at Christmas. Star and angels gave the Son. Love shall be our token. Love be yours and love be mine. Love to God and all men. Love for plea and gift and song.
For our meditation today, I'm going to read out of Divine Audacity. It's written in the first person, so I'm going to read it as me and as each of you also. If you can make yourself comfortable in your chair, put your back against the back of the chair and relax. Put your feet on the floor and your hands on your lap. Calming my breath, I focus attention on the center of my forehead inward, at the site of the pineal gland located between the two hemispheres of my brain. Breathing in, breathing out, attention fixed. I bless this connecting link between the physical and the spiritual, sensitive to the pulsing of life, the movement of energy. I shine the royal blue light of faith into the center of my brain. The spaces between the hemispheres brushed blue. I broadcast blue light throughout my brain, down through my body. A healing stream, royal blue signifying my consciousness of faith. Faith is my ability to see what cannot be seen humanly. I activate this spiritual power, courageously perceiving a greater truth than my physical senses report. I dare myself to see what cannot be seen by human eyes, but exists as surely as the sun exists behind a cloud. I perceive the bottom line truths about life, that life is irrepressible, eternal, and perfect in every stage and form. I stretch my capacity to see the good that can be troubling situations. I envision possibilities, even seemingly impossible circumstances. I am devoted to perceiving the good that can be. I am convinced that the nature of unseen good, the animating and harmonizing creative power behind all that I have and experience is my nature. I am divine. I reach inward to my storehouse of faith and remain faithful during times when my human brain cannot envision the magnificent possibilities of wholeness of life, harmonious love, and wealth beyond measure. I demonstrate conviction by living as love lives, as wholeness lives, as wisdom lives. I audaciously trust in universal goodness, so much as I rest deeply in the peace of spiritual assurance. By my innate power of faith, I live in positive expectancy. I center my attention in joyous anticipation, knowing all is well, truly. And a few moments of silence. And now it's time to quietly come back. When you're ready, open your eyes. I'd like to share something that I received from Nancy's message, a lesson that I learned from her or was reinforced. Sharing is giving of your prize possessions. That's a beautiful lesson. And so that as we give from our prize possessions of what we have accumulated, so that this ministry and others may benefit, I ask you to dig down deep into your heart and offer to this ministry from your abundance that which will serve each and every one of us and those within our community. And so it is. And I too am offering from my abundance.
Going to invite Aisha to join us to sing along with this one, Holy, Holy, Holy.
Holy, holy. Early in the morning, our song shall rise to thee. Holy, 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 merciful and mighty, perfect in power, perfect in power, evermore shall be. Holy, 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 though the darkness hide thee, though the erring eye of man the glory may not see, cherubim and seraphim falling down before me, perfect in power, perfect in power, and purity. Holy, 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 Lord God Almighty, all thy works shall praise thy name in earth and sky and sea. There is a sign at the side of thee, there is none beside thee, perfect in power, perfect in power, perfect in power, perfect in power, love and purity.
So beautiful. So, so, so beautiful. Thank you, Aisha, Mitch, Arden. So beautiful. So beautiful. Yo. We don't talk about how much is in there. Thank you. Ah, yes. Thank you. Thank you for the abundance, offering from your heart, from all that you have given and all that you hopefully will continue to give so that our ministry may continue to thrive. We bless these offerings knowing that they will multiply as the fish and the bread did. And so it is. Amen. Amen. Bernie, I'm going to rely on you to click these forward, okay? Thank you. Our announcements. Oh, no. Let's get that off. That shouldn't be there. Let it go. Christmas Eve service, December 24th, in 2 days, right here, all of you, and I'm hopeful that all the rest of the seats will be filled too. It'll be a candlelight service. We will have Readers Theater that Nancy is directing, along with our players who are scattered throughout here. And then I will be reading you the night before Christmas, and we'll interpret that metaphorically. Rudra, did you have a question? When you bring presents for everyone, we all will be getting them. So thank you for buying us all presents, Rudra. The presents will be that of love and a sense of community and remembering the truth of who we are. Thank you. Beginning on January 5th, our services will begin at 10:30 a.m. and will continue through the rest of the year. Meditation class. Daryl, any change with meditation? You want you? Yes, please come up to the mic.
So obviously Barb booted us out on Tuesday night. So we won't be here Tuesday night. The following Tuesday, New Year's Eve, we will be here. We'll be doing the Synchronizing Your Energy to a New Life. Prepare ourselves for the new year. The following Tuesday after that, the 7th, will be our healing meditation for January. Hope to see you all here, because the more people that are here, the more energy we get moving, and the more successful we are. After that, for those of you that have been kind of on the fence or what have you, we're going to start doing some lessons before meditation on Tuesday night. Dr. Jolette, obviously. It's about a 25-minute lesson, and then we'll get into our meditation. So for those of you that are interested in learning a little bit more about it, it would be a great time to start joining us. And that's all.
Thanks, Daryl. Bernie? Yes, if you haven't signed up for the newsletter, please do so. Here is the address, unityrochester.org. It's real simple. Next one, please. Thank you for all of you who have brought poinsettias and poinsettias, and for other times you brought other arrangements. Please bring them. Thank you for that. Suzanne, we didn't get the slide for today. Reiki, can you recall the next date? I know, I'm sorry. Holy. Middle of January. January 12th. Thank you, Suzanne. Yeah, almost middle. 3/4 of the way. Thank you both. Anything else for the good of the order? Announcements? And the prayer chaplains will be available after service around the outside of the sanctuary, and please avail yourselves of their beautiful sense of peace. Prayer chaplains, yes, and then we shall begin prayer for protection. And please sing through twice. Aisha, you coming up? You can't stay away. Come on. I want you to stay away.
The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well.
And if we may join around the outside of the sanctuary, joining hands if you're comfortable doing so, and if not, just let the folks on either side of you know you just like to stay separate, only in hands. Oh, you're all ready then. Arden, whenever you're ready.